Doc Green, at least we hope you are. Thank you, Wendy. And we have Kevin Broughton, Communications Director.
Kevin Broughton, Communications Director.
And we hopefully have George there. Do we have George?
You got me.
All right, George, got to talk in the microphone, and you don't hear yourself.
Well, hey, Doc. Hey, George. Yeah, I think it'll work.
Everybody got audio in their headphones?
Yeah.
Okay, great. So, Kevin, what brings you here today?
Well, Doc and El Conservador, I'm in my capacity as the communications guy for the Tea Party Patriots. I've been asked, and I'm honored to be here, to give a talk to the Texas Tea Party folks about how to deal with the media, some of the pitfalls, some of the challenges, and some of the opportunities. So that's why I'm here.
So one of the things you would do is you would, for instance, tell them, whatever you do, don't go on Doc Green's show because he will ask some hard and maybe embarrassing questions.
That's actually number one on the list. That's the first bullet point right out of the gate. Yes, sir.
Well, a lot of the politicians, particularly the Republicans in Washington, are taking your advice. They will not come on my show. Let me ask you this. It is our position here at Raging Elephants Radio, I think I speak for everyone, the only thing that we really expect of a politician is that, first of all, if you're a Republican, read the Republican platform and subscribe to it. And if you can't live with that platform, then change your R to a D or something else.
Sounds pretty reasonable to me.
That seems like a reasonable thing. The other thing is if you're running for national office, read the Constitution of the United States and don't allow anything that violates the Constitution of the United States. Is that too much to ask?
No objection here.
So why can't we find anybody to do that except for Louis Gohmert?
That's the problem. That's the problem. You know, obviously, I think what we saw with this last little attempted coup against the speaker, would we have liked it to be more organized? You know, Louis just gave a long talk about that in there.
Yes.
We came pretty close, but I think, you know, I'd like to see things as a glass half full type deal. 25 guys voting against a sitting speaker, that's pretty historic, and I think you got to go back to around Civil War times for that to have happened.
It is, but it didn't really solve the problem because I've always said that John Boehner's the best friend the Democrats ever had.
Yeah, indeed, but you know what? Onward and upward. Onward and upward. We've lost that one. It's in the rearview mirror, and so let's push an agenda for the next 2 years.
Well, my first agenda is Congress has constitutional authority to rein in the president, and the president is a lawbreaker. He has violated multiple constitutional laws, and therefore is a felon according to the United States Constitution. And Congress is the only body that's entrusted with the capability to rein in the president. Yet there doesn't seem to be a man in Washington, not even Louis Gohmert, that is willing to do that.
Well, I mean, if you're wanting for somebody to put him in cuffs, it's just not going to happen over the next 2 years. And I swear, Doc, I'm with you. I'm on your team. But the thing is, look, I'd love to have Obamacare repealed tomorrow.
Well, Republicans promised to do that.
Well, the sad fact of the matter is, even if they stuck to the promise and repealed it, and if somehow it got past a filibuster in the Senate, Obama is still going to veto it. It's a great exercise in principle, but ultimately it's an academic exercise right now.
Doc, you know, if I could interject,
go ahead. El Conservador here. Go ahead.
Politics. Since Kevin is the communications person, let's talk about the communications and the message, because that's the thing that interests me at this point. It doesn't do us a bit of good to preach about what to do with Obama if the people who are supposed to do something about it in the grassroots are not doing it.
Right.
Let's talk. I'm very, very interested in what you're finding across the nation. Here, our organization, Radio, is quickly becoming Radio Free Texas, so to speak. It's very fast becoming the voice of grassroots liberty people. And I'm just curious, are there any similar situations or similar adventures like this going on in other states? Because I just see the social media, particularly internet and radio, as becoming a very, very good vehicle in which to carry the message.
You know, I think you guys are a great template. I think you're a great template or a roadmap for other folks out there. This is we were talking before we came on, and you were telling me the phenomenal growth you guys have had in the short time you've been around. it seems like the internet is ready-made for an enterprise like this, and it's nothing but gravy going forward for folks out there in the grassroots looking to find a voice and get it out there. I would encourage people all across the country to try and replicate what you guys are doing.
Because I do remember that in the 1960s, folks during the Civil Rights Movement would put together weekly newspapers that they would mimeograph.
Yeah.
That's the thing to do.
The old ditto rolling sheets.
Rolling sheets. They would mimeograph tons and tons of sheets and messages. And it was a very, very good tool in organizing and getting people out. It seems to us that the internet and social media would be a very, very good vehicle to carry the freedom message. Now, I asked Jenny Beth briefly about the freedom message that you guys have put together. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
The freedom,
the message, the freedom message.
Well, our
message, the language of freedom,
the language of liberty. That's you're going to want to talk to Bill Norton about that. He'd go upside my head if I tried to co-opt any of his. But obviously, we have Tea Party Patriots. We have three core values: personal freedom, economic freedom, and a debt-free future. And wherever I go doing my job, I try to convey just real life examples of what that means, and then people who might have said, well, the Tea Party's kind of crazy, aren't they? And I'd say, well, here's what we're about. And they say, well, that doesn't sound too radical at all. And so that's, I guess, the challenging and the fun part of my job is getting out there and shaping it. And it really doesn't need shaping, because our issues, the ones we come down hard on, we've got the support of a majority of the American people. It's just, it's fighting through that media filter and getting it out there, because honestly, and we're going to see this, you're going to see that from TPP over the next 2 years, leading into the 2016 presidential. We're going to find a handful of issues that are 70% issues, and we're going to find candidates who will adopt or conform to or co-opt these handful of winning issues, and we're going to put those forward in 2016. And it's it's like the old proverb: you catch more flies with honey than vinegar. So I look forward to the next 2 years, because we're putting forward a positive message and trying to broaden our base.
Now, speaking of that, I personally, as well as many other folks, but I personally have an ongoing battle with Univision Telemundo because of the way that they ignore interviewing anybody from our side of the table. Yet constantly, I think MRC, the Media Research Center, recently or last year did a survey where they found that Univision Telemundo 80% of the time will run to a liberal source rather than do a balanced job.
Yeah.
And in that aspect of it, the language of liberty needs to be carried into those communities. Anything that you guys...
Well, if only we had just maybe one Hispanic conservative in the state of Texas who could help do that. It's like, you're not the only one? I think, Univision...
Spanish speaking, because there are a lot of Hispanic conservatives. They're just, some of us don't speak Spanish.
We need to get you guys to the front of the line. It's a constant struggle that we have is again, I call it fighting through that media filter.
Right.
They've got a narrative out there, and sometimes, and I'll get into this in my talk here at lunchtime, a lot of the times it's not necessarily a quote liberal conspiracy agenda. A lot of it's born out of ignorance. Bernie Goldberg, the guy who he was at CBS News for 23 years, wrote a book called Bias back about 15 years ago, and he shared a story from 1972. He was, a lifelong Democrat. He's at a dinner party after the 1972 election, and one of the ladies in this salon says, "I can't believe Richard Nixon won. Everybody I know voted for McGovern." So a lot of what the media has is just, it's more of a laziness than necessarily a liberal agenda.
Exactly.
And so they just tend to assume that, we Tea Party folks are...
we got to give them the story.
Right, yeah, because they start from a default premise that we are, pick any of the following: rednecks, racist, angry, rubes, and so that's what we, as the grassroots ourselves, and what I'm going to try and convey to these local folks is, when you choose a person who's going to be the face of your local group who talks to the media, let's make it a person who can convey that message in a positive way that's relatively free of anger, and maybe that's the first step in cracking that narrative.
I'm glad you're saying that, Kevin, because one of the things that I noticed is that quite often in talking to our folks on the grassroots is that they quit talking to the media, particularly the local media, because the media is our enemy, and so therefore we don't talk to them. Well, they're going to be tough nuts to break initially. Yeah. But you got to establish some kind of relationship with something.
Absolutely. One of the, you can come in and listen to my talk. It'll only be like $8.
Oh, okay.
So one of the things I discussed,
Such a deal.
I am a Mississippian, and by the time I came on board with the Tea Party